الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه العبد المؤيد والرسول المسدد حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته المنتجبين. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ومن آياته أن خلق لكم من أنفسكم أزواجا لتسكنوا إليها وجعل بينكم مودة ورحمة صدق الله العلي العظيم. وصلى على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
There was a young man and a young woman. The young man by the name of Khalid, who lived in New York. He was from a small community and had no luck in marriage. Whenever he attempted to meet someone, he didn't have so much luck. And he didn't have too many options either, because he came from a small community. Maryam was living in Denmark. She lived in a big community. However, her luck in marriage was very similar to Khalid's luck. Whenever suitors came to propose, it never worked out. There was never a match between her and those who proposed. One day, Maryam was going through her Instagram account and she saw a picture by Khalid in Karbala, in Bayn al-Haramain, posing with the two shrines. She liked the picture. She commented on the picture, stating how much she desires to go to Karbala and other holy shrines. And then she went through other pictures and she saw that Khalid has a lot of the same interests as she does. They share a lot of interests. They have a lot in common. So they began messaging and they began commenting on each other's pictures. Soon later they met, they married, and they had children. Now this story is a fictitious story. It's not a real story. I don't know who Khalid is, and I don't know who Maryam is. However, this is a very common story. Maybe not of a person named Khalid and a person named Maryam, but this is a story of a lot of youth today. Today there's a new phenomenon. More and more youth are getting married through the use of social media. Meeting on Instagram, Facebook, and other social media outlets. This is a new phenomenon. This didn't exist previously. Previously, there was a traditional way of finding a spouse. Your mother finds a beautiful young lady for you at the Hosseiniya, at the majlis, or you meet a co-worker, you meet someone at school, you get to know them, your parents get to know them, you go and propose to the father, and it works out. Today, there's a new phenomenon. Today, more and more youth are less finding people offline and more finding people online. It might not be from their own community. It might not be in their own country. But they're finding spouses and they're getting married and it's being successful. Others have made attempts that were not so successful. But this has become a reality today. What happened, my dear friends? Why is it that today youth are turning away from the traditional way of finding a spouse at the Hosseiniya, at work, at school, at university, and turning more towards social media? What happened? What changed? We need to examine this. Why is this new phenomena arising today. This is one. Two, I would like to call this phenomenon as the Instagram marriages. People are finding each other on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or other social media outlets. Is this healthy for our communities, for our youth, for our young sons and daughters? Is it healthy for them to meet online and to form a marriage and to get married and form a family? Is this good or is this bad? We shall examine the pros and the cons of Instagram marriages. And number three, towards the end, I will give my humble opinion on this subject. Do I encourage our youngsters, our youth, to find a prospective spouse online or not? We will talk about that at the end, inshallah. Wa sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Of course, this topic does not only relate to the youth, but it relates to the parents as well. Because you might be a youth that is looking for a wife, either offline or online. Or you might be a parent of a youth that is searching for a spouse, either offline or online. So this subject is relevant to everyone, youth and parents and elderly alike. Now, how did we end up this way? Why is it that more youth are finding spouses online and not offline? Well, one, it's a cultural issue. Our society is guilty of this. Our society, our communities have something to do with it. They get a percentage of the blame. Why? I like to call this the wall of China phenomenon. What do I mean by this? We've created walls and barriers for our youth. Our Muslim youth, they don't meet. They don't interact. They don't see one another. Not at the Husseiniya, not at the masjid, not at our public events. Of course, I don't mean to target a specific community. This is a general, issue that applies to many communities. We've created walls and barriers, physically and psychologically. Our youth don't meet. They don't mix. We don't have conferences for our youth. We don't have events for our youth to gather, to meet, to see one another, to look for prospective spouses. Where are they going to go look? If we've shut down all the doors, if we've shut down all the opportunities, they're going to resort to online opportunities. This is a problem. We have to, if we don't facilitate for our youth to meet in a righteous, pious, religious sort of manner, to meet and to find future spouses, for our youth, for our men to find wives, and for our wives, for our women to find husbands. If we don't facilitate, they will find their own ways. They will find other means of finding a spouse. So the community is to blame to a certain degree. Another factor that led to this new phenomenon of Instagram marriages is picky parents. Picky parents. There are a lot of youth that do find someone, but when they come and they tell their parents say, no, not this one, not this one, not this one. What options are you leaving your youth with? Your young son who has found someone at school, at university, or at work. He might not have found the best daughter-in-law in the world, but for him, she might be good. But if you're going to be picky and say no to anyone that he proposes or he offers, or even the young daughter, if she finds someone at school, at university, and she tells her mom that I might have found someone who is appropriate for me and my family, and you keep on saying no, you're not leaving your youth with a lot of options. This is two. And number three, this is something normal. Instagram marriages are a result of the social media revolution. the smartphone revolution. This is something normal. Who doesn't have smartphones nowadays? Who doesn't have social media accounts nowadays? Everyone does. From children all the way up till grown-ups. Even the elderly. We all have social media. We all have Facebook. We all have Instagram and Twitter and Snapchat. This is something normal for our youth to turn away from meeting people in person to meeting people online. You know, one of the drawbacks of smartphones and social media is there's less personal contact, right? We're always text messaging.
Yes.
We don't even call. Nowadays, people don't even bother to call. How many messages did you receive regarding the month of Ramadan? People greeting you regarding the month of Ramadan and wishing you a good Ramadan. How many people called and how many people messaged? I assure you that you received a lot more messages than you received phone calls. This is the reality today. Today people are communicating via social media, via phones, via messages. There's less personal contact. So this is something normal. This is a normal result of the social media revolution. صلوا على محمد وعلى
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
Now, are Instagram marriages something healthy? Are they something good? Or are they something destructive? In order to pass judgment, I could tell you it's good. But is that convincing? You can't take my word for face value. We have to be convinced. Anything that is good, we have to be convinced that it is good. Anything that is bad, we have to be convinced that it is bad. And the best way to make an assessment is by studying the pros and studying the cons. That way we'll be fair. That way we'll be fair to pass a judgment on anything, whether it's the usage of social media, Instagram marriages, or anything else. We have to weigh out the pros and the cons. Let's look at the pros. Number one, for those that look to social media, for Facebook and Instagram, to look for spouses, well, number one, you have a lot of options. You have a lot to choose from. You're not restricted to your own community, or your own ethnicity, your own race, or your own country. When it comes to social media, there's millions of users. There's people from Africa, from Iraq, from Iran, from Nigeria, from the US, from Europe. There's so many people out there from various ethnicities and races. So that gives you a lot of options. This is something good for those that live in very small communities and they don't have too many options. There's only 2.5 eligible bachelors in their communities. Well, now there's millions of people for them to meet and to get to know. So this is one. Many options and lots of choices. Number two, social media lets you discover a lot about people. You discover so much about them, their interests, their religion, their faith, their background, their hobbies. You can tell so much about a person from their pictures. Where did they go? Where did they go? Do they attend lectures or not? Do they post pictures of Hossein al Qazwini giving a boring speech about Instagram marriages? Do they go for ziyarah? What are their interests? Do they post about sports or food? Or what is it that they post about? You can discover a lot about a person with social media. You can discover a lot about how they think, right? By looking at their posts and their tweets. What do they tweet about? Do they tweet about intellectual things? Do they use profanity? You know, I've said this in many of my lectures that unfortunately many of our youth, they don't realize that on social media there's people, you know, that watch them, that see what they're doing. They use profanity. They say some of the stupid things that they will regret after a couple of years. You can discover a lot about a person through social media, through what they post about, the pictures that they put of themselves. It says a lot. Do they have pictures without hijab and a lot of makeup and mixed sessions with a lot of men around, or the same applies for young men. What kind of pictures do they post about themselves and their friends? You can discover a lot from social media, things that you might not discover in person. You know, today, I know in some countries, when a young man comes and proposes to a family, they say, we will ask about you. What they end up is they go on their Facebook account, and they discover a lot about that person from his Facebook account. Does he listen to music, or does he listen to Quran? Which sort of places does he go to? What are the things that he posts about? What kind of language does he use? There's a lot that you can discover and know about a person from social media. You see the person in person, they're very shy, they're humble, you know, they don't talk much. When you go on Twitter and you see the things that they say and the words that they use and the people that they speak to, you're absolutely shocked to the amount of knowledge, the amount of information that you come across through social media. So that's one of the pros. You discover a lot about a person through social media. Number 3, on social media, there's no barriers. In person, if you're shy to ask some questions, you can't get to know a person, and you're shy, you can't ask a lot of questions, you can't get to know that person. But on social media, you can speak freely. You're not so shy, because there's a screen in between you and that person. You can ask any question that you want, and there's no one looking over your shoulders. There's no one telling you, you have to go back home, you have to stop this conversation. No, you can speak freely at any time, whenever you'd like. You could be wherever. There's no restrictions, there's no barriers, there's no one putting pressure on you. All of these are pros of speaking, of getting to know a person on social media. 4, you can, through social media, through Instagram, through Facebook, through Twitter, you can discover, you can find people that have similar interests as you. What are you interested in? In religion? You can discover that through social media. Are you interested in sports? You can discover that through social media. Are you interested in ziyaras and lectures? What is it exactly that you're interested in? You can discover that through social media. While in person, it might take you a while to discover what are the interests of the person that you'd like to get to know. These are some pros of getting to know people through social media. Are there cons? Absolutely. Are there disadvantages? Absolutely. Everything has advantages and has disadvantages. What are the disadvantages? صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Well, for one, there can be many imposters online. You don't know who you're speaking to. There's a lot of imposters. You don't even know if this person, what gender they are. Are they a male or a female? They could be acting. There's a lot of actors on social media, on Facebook and on Instagram. You don't know who you're speaking to. It's just an account. And they're posting pictures. You don't know, are these pictures real? Are they Photoshopped? Is it really them? Is it their neighbor? Is it an actor? You don't really know. And let's say it's really you're a female and you're really speaking to a male and that's really his picture and he's telling you the truth. Who says he really has serious intentions of marriage? There's a lot of people online that are playing around, that are fooling around with people's emotions. How can you really tell that this person has serious intentions of marriage? This is a problem. This is a question that you need to ask yourself when you speak to someone online. How serious are they? And are they real or are they fake? Are they imposters? This is something that you have to discover. 2, how much do you really know about this person? Other than what they post. This person might be posting about religious things. Does that mean that they're really religious? The biggest imposter, the biggest drug dealer can come and post on Instagram, Ramadan Mubarak, and you will assume that this person is what? Religious. Just because they're posting about religious things, verses of the Quran, or sayings of Prophet Muhammad and Ahlul Bayt, sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. It doesn't mean that they're religious. They might have been to Karbala or Mashhad or Samarra or Medina and they're posting pictures from the holy site. Does that necessarily make them religious? No. You don't know a lot about this person. Do they have a good reputation in their community? You don't know. What does their community say about them? You don't know. What does their former spouse say about them? You don't know. If that person was married in the past, what does his ex-wife say about them? Well, why did they get divorced? Why did they get divorced in the first place? You don't know any of these things through social media. You can only discover these things if you meet the person in person. If you go to their community and you ask about them. Otherwise, through social media, you don't know a lot about this person. Does this person pray? Just because they post a picture of them praying in a masjid or at a mosque, doesn't mean that they pray 5 times a day. You don't know. You don't know this. Do they have good akhlaq? You don't know any of this. So this keeps a blind spot. This keeps, a lot of ignorance on your behalf towards that person. You don't know a lot about that person except from what they post, what they tweet, and the pictures that they post about themselves. Also, Instagram marriages are still unconventional. They're still unconventional. People are still used to the traditional way of finding a spouse. Meeting someone at your Husseiniya, your mother finds you someone, your sister finds you someone, meeting someone at work, at school, at university. This is the conventional way. But meeting someone online, this is still unconventional. It's still unorthodox. And it might be unacceptable for some. Are your parents willing to accept a daughter-in-law that you met on Instagram and you've never met online? Are your parents willing to accept a son-in-law that lives in another country and they've never met and you've never met, but you've met on Facebook and they met and they live in another continent, another country? Is this acceptable? Who knows? Will society accept this? Imagine, you introduce your wife and they say, well, where did you meet her? And you say, Instagram. And people will be shocked. Oh, you met on Instagram or on Facebook? So you didn't know each other before? You didn't go to the same mosque? You didn't go to the same community? It's still unconventional. So that's one of the drawbacks and one of the cons of meeting someone online or through social media. And also, when it comes to marriage, you want advice from people. You want advice from your parents. You want advice from your siblings, from your friends. What do you think of this person? Do you think this person will make a good match with me? Do you think this person will make a good mother? Or will make a good father? You want advice from people. When you meet someone online, from another continent, from another country, your parents haven't met, your siblings haven't met, your friends haven't met, how are you going to get their advice? Whose advice are you going to get? This doesn't leave you with a lot of room to get advice from people. And remember, at the end of the day, you don't want just a good wife. You want a good mother. You don't want just a good husband. You want a good father. Will you be able to discover that in a person from social media? I don't know. Only you will be able to answer this question. Sallu ala Muhammad wa alihi.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Now, what is our opinion on this subject? Of course, my opinion doesn't really matter. But for those that wonder, I say the following. If you have the ability to find someone in your community, from your mosque, from your Husseiniya, of course we have to facilitate that. We have to facilitate. Otherwise, if we cannot get our youth to meet for a good reason, not for bad reasons, with clean intentions, with pure intentions, for the sake of marriage, for the sake of building a family, if we can facilitate that, and our youth have the ability to meet someone from their own community, from their own Husseiniya, from their own madrasa, someone who is appropriate for them, someone who can make a good mother, a good father, then I think that should be your number one priority. Do not resort to someone online. If you can find a match from your community or another community, but someone that you can know on a personal level, someone whom you can ask about, you can get advice about, someone who you will receive recommendations about. You know, someone, for example, you're living here in Allentown, but there's someone in London. You have cousins or friends in London and they tell you, we found you someone very appropriate. Someone with a good reputation, with good akhlaq, good faith, good religion, and good looks. That is a priority. I think you should go for that first. But if that didn't work, if you live in a small community with small numbers, there's not too many eligible bachelors in your community. There's not too many young men or not too many young women that are in the age of getting married. Maybe there are some young men, but they're either too young, they're not thinking of marriage, or they're too old and they've already married and they've settled and they have children. And you're not left with too many options. You live in a small community and, you know, as they say, you're not getting any younger. You're only getting older. And as you get older, your options reduce. So what do? You don't get married at all? No, there's plan B. If social media works, if social media helps, and if you can meet someone with your interests, someone who's religious, someone who has good akhlaq, someone you can trust, then good. That should be plan B. But don't skip plan A and go to plan B. If you can meet someone from your own community, do it. Don't resort to meeting someone online. Only do that when you're left without options. When you're left with no options from your own community, then you can resort to finding someone online. However, don't go for complete strangers. What do I mean by this? Don't meet someone that lives out of nowhere, lives in a country that no one knows. He's from Iceland, for example, right? And there's no one that you can ask. You know, you want to marry this person, you have to ask. There's no one that you can ask. You know, this person is a complete stranger. There's no one that you can ask about. There's no one that you can receive a recommendation about. Avoid such people. Avoid complete strangers that you know nothing about and cannot ask anything about. Because that will be a disaster. That's a disaster. That you're taking a risk. You're risking, you know, your emotions. You're risking getting involved in a marriage that can end disastrously. If you meet someone online, let him be or let her be from a community that you could ask about. Ask them, which mosque do you go to? Which Husseiniya do you go to? Who do you know? Give me a list of your friends. Which sheikh or sayyid or religious scholar may I refer to ask them about you? This is important. Otherwise, if you don't know anything about this person and you're getting into this marriage, you're taking a big risk. If you end up meeting someone online, then number one, you have to meet this person. Don't make any decisions and wedding dates by not meeting this person. You and your family have to meet this person. You have to meet this person. In public, and with your parents' blessings. If your parents don't want to meet them, at least you have to meet them. But with your parents' blessings, and you meet in public, you have to meet them in person. You have to get to know them. Don't get to know the online personality. You have to get to know the offline personality. Because some people can have two personalities. Am I right or am I wrong? Some people can have two personalities. Online, they're brave, they're courageous, they give you a religious, impression that they're very religious, but offline, they're far from religion. They're far from akhlaq. They're far from all virtues. You have to get to know both of the personalities, the online and the offline personalities. Two, your parents also have to meet them, not just you. You need a second opinion. You need a third opinion. When it comes to marriage, there's no amount of opinions that's too little. Or too much, I'm sorry. When it comes to marriage, no amount of opinions are too much. The more opinions that you get, the better. From friends, from community members, from parents, especially from parents. Especially from your mother and from your father. Right? And three, ask about that person. Ask. Ask religious scholars. Ask community members. Ask friends, what do you know about this person? What do you know about their past? What do you know about their akhlaq? Have they ever been into trouble? Have they ever gotten themselves into trouble? If they have a former spouse, ask, why did you get divorced? Was it because of you? Was it because of him? Was it because of her? What happened that you divorced? That way you will have an educated opinion of that person. Even if you met them online, you will have an educated opinion. That way you will make a good decision. Whether this person is suitable or not suitable. So what should we take home? If you can meet someone in person, that should be your number one priority. If that didn't work, either because of lack of choices, lack of options, there's not a lot of people that you can meet from your community, then you can take plan B of meeting someone online through social media, through Instagram, through Facebook, through Snapchat, or other social media outlets. Let's raise our hands in dua. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Oh Allah, allow our youth to find the spouses that will bring them happiness and to make them more religious. Oh Allah, let our youth meet spouses that will make them closer to Allah. And to allow them to raise righteous families and righteous children. الذين يقولون ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين وجعلنا للمتقين إماما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أسألك أن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر من الأمر المحتوم في الأمر الحكيم من القضاء الذي لا يرد ولا يبدل أن تكتبنا من حجاج بيتك الحرام المبرور حجهم المشكور سعيهم المغفور ذنوبهم المكفر عنهم سيئاتهم وأن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر أن تطيل عمري في خير وعافية وتوسع في رزقي وتجعلني ممن تنتصر به لدينك ولا تستبدل بي غيري. أعوذ بجلال وجهك الكريم أن ينقضي عني شهر رمضان أو يطلع الفجر من ليلتي هذه ولك قبلي تبعة أو ذنب تعذبني عليه ولأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات والعلماء والشهداء. نقرأ سورة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.